Have you ever wondered why a mechanic's motorcycle never rattles, never hesitates, and somehow always feels fresher than yours, even if yours has fewer miles? There's a reason for that. Mechanics don't wait for parts to fail. They don't trust service intervals, and they definitely don't rely on the same checklist they hand to customers. Every 3 months, they run through a secret routine, a quiet ritual, a set of tiny adjustments and inspections that never end up on any bill. And once you learn what they're really doing, you'll understand why their bikes feel brand new, while everyone else's slowly loses its edge. But to see the first trick they never talk about, we have to start with something most riders never even think about adjusting. Number 1. Fine-tuning suspension sag and rebound. Most riders set their suspension once, if at all, and never touch it again. Mechanics know that's a mistake. Riding conditions change, weight changes, even tire wear shifts how the bike sits on the road. So every few months, they quietly reset sag. They measure how much the bike compresses with and without the rider's weight. Then they adjust preload until the bike sits exactly where the suspension was designed to work. Why? Because even a few millimeters of difference can change how the bike corners, how it brakes, and how stable it feels at high speed. After that, they take it a step further. They tweak rebound damping. Not wildly, just small clicks to eliminate bouncing or lag when the suspension returns after a bump. Most riders never notice these changes happening. They just feel like the bike suddenly rides smoother and responds quicker. And this small monthly ritual leads directly into the next quiet habit mechanics perform, one that happens long before any warning light ever appears. Number 2. Inspecting charging system performance. Most riders think a bike is fine as long as it starts, but mechanics know batteries aren't the full story. Every few months, they check the entire charging system: stator output, regulator function, and voltage stability. A weak stator doesn't always show symptoms. A failing regulator doesn't always cause dim lights. Instead, these problems show up as vague issues riders blame on something else: rough idle, random stalling, inconsistent throttle. So mechanics test charging voltage at idle and at higher RPM. They look for dips and spikes that hint something is wearing out. If they catch the problem early, the rider never knows. They just think the bike is running better this season. But this quiet electrical check also sets the stage for another hidden routine, one so small that most riders would never guess it matters. Number 3. Cleaning and resetting ground points. Modern bikes rely heavily on stable electrical signals. A rusty or loose ground can cause a long list of mysterious symptoms: ABS lights flickering, sensors acting strange, random cutouts. Mechanics know this, which is why they go around the bike every few months and clean ground connections. They remove corrosion, retighten bolts, and sometimes apply a thin layer of dielectric grease. It's a tiny job, but it prevents a mountain of headaches later. Most riders never think about grounds, but mechanics treat them like the foundation of the entire electrical system. And while they're down there checking ground points, they usually move on to something that slightly changes the personality of the engine itself.
Number 4. Resetting throttle body balance. Engines with more than one cylinder often fall out of sync. One cylinder starts doing more work than the other, causing the engine to vibrate more or lose smoothness. Mechanics quietly check this using a synchronization tool. They compare airflow between throttle bodies and adjust them until each cylinder pulls evenly. This small correction can transform the whole feel of the motorcycle. Suddenly, the engine becomes smoother. Power delivery becomes cleaner. Idle steadies out. It's like tuning a musical instrument. One string slightly off changes the whole sound. Mechanics know this, which is why they don't wait for symptoms. They just tune it every few months. And once the engine is running in perfect harmony, they move to an area riders almost always overlook. Number 5. Inspecting fuel system health. Fuel injectors don't fail overnight. They slowly get dirty. Spray patterns weaken, tiny particles build up, and efficiency drops. Mechanics catch this early by checking injector performance through subtle signs: uneven throttle response, poor cold starts, micro-hesitation at steady speed. If they spot early clues, they'll run a high-quality injector cleaner through the system, something far stronger than what's sold at gas stations. They'll also check fuel pump pressure to make sure it isn't weakening. Riders never feel this happening, at least not at first, but mechanics detect tiny drops in pressure that indicate the pump is aging. These quiet checks prevent the sudden breakdowns riders blame on bad fuel. And to support the fuel system further, mechanics move on to the one thing that keeps the whole engine breathing properly. Number 6. Deep cleaning throttle and idle circuits. As air passes through the intake, small amounts of dust and oil vapor settle around the throttle blades. Over time, this buildup causes sticky throttle action, inconsistent idle, and poor low-speed control. Mechanics clean this area every few months with a soft brush and a safe cleaner. They remove grime around the throttle plates, check for carbon buildup, and make sure the idle control mechanism can move freely. These tiny details have a big impact. Suddenly, the throttle feels sharp again. Idle becomes stable. Low-speed riding feels less jerky. And as soon as the throttle system is spotless, mechanics shift focus to something even subtler, something most riders never think to inspect until it's too late. Number 7. Checking wheel bearings for microplay. Wheel bearings rarely fail suddenly. They first become slightly rough or develop tiny amounts of movement you can't feel while riding. Mechanics catch this early by lifting each wheel and spinning it slowly. They listen for faint grinding. They check for tiny side-to-side wiggles. If anything feels off, they fix it long before the rider ever notices a problem. This tiny check prevents wobble, vibration, and even tire wear. But wheel bearings aren't the only hidden rotating part mechanics quietly examine. Number 8. Evaluating steering head preload. A loose steering head bearing creates a knocking sound when braking. A tight one makes slow turns feel heavy and sluggish. Most riders don't know the difference, but mechanics feel it instantly. Every few months, they adjust preload so the bars move smoothly with no binding and no free play. It's a delicate adjustment. Too much or too little changes the entire feel of the bike. And once the front end is perfectly dialed in, mechanics finish their secret routine with a step that ties everything together, one that no customer ever sees or hears about.
Number 9. Recalibrating engine sensors through adaptives. Modern motorcycles constantly learn how you ride. They adjust fueling, timing, idle control, and throttle sensitivity based on conditions. But over time, these learned values drift. Mechanics quietly reset adaptives so the bike relearns its ideal settings. This makes the engine feel crisp again, restores throttle accuracy, and fixes small hesitations riders assume are just aging. A quick reset can make a bike feel like it jumped back several years in health. But it's the test ride afterward, the moment when everything comes together, that reveals whether the 3-month routine worked. And that leads to the final habit mechanics rely on. Number 10. Sensory test riding. This isn't a normal ride. Mechanics don't cruise casually. They listen, they feel, they scan for clues. A slight pulsing under braking, a tiny stumble at low RPM, a throttle hesitation when rolling on, a vibration that only appears at a certain speed. These sensations tell them exactly where to look, and once they correct the issue, they never mention it to the customer. To them, this isn't extra work. This is just what keeps a motorcycle feeling alive. Mechanics don't just fix motorcycles, they interpret them. They watch how small changes affect the whole machine. They adjust things before problems appear. And while most riders wait for something to break, mechanics quietly reset the bike back to its ideal form every few months. That's why their motorcycles feel smoother, stronger, and more connected. Not because they ride better, not because they know secrets they won't share, but because they never let small problems grow into big ones. The difference isn't in the parts, it's in the attention.